I have bolted together several AR builds using ALG Defense Rails over the last few years. My 16-inch AR carbine probably went through a dozen iterations, most of them using one model of ALG free-float rail handguard or another. The ALG rail lineup consists of several models and multiple generations. They are all free-float aluminum rails using a proprietary barrel nut. There are essentially 4 styles of rail if you don't include the keymod version, which I don't because nobody really cares about keymod anymore. The rail variants are numbered V0 through V3, available in many different lengths, including 10, 13, 15, maybe 18 for some of them. The V0 has a proprietary accessory mount system. ALG sells bolt-on 1913 rail sections you can add on wherever you need to mount accessories. The V1 is the same thing but with M-Lok slots all around instead of the proprietary system. V2s have M-Lok slots like the V1 but also have an additional machined-in section of 1913 rail at the front 12 o'clock position for mounting backup iron sights. Version 3 has a full-length 1913 rail on the 12 o'clock and M-Lok slots on all the other faces of the rail. Obviously, the more 1913 rail you have on top, the heavier they get, and the V0 is slightly heavier than the V1 because it has less material removed for the accessory mounting solution. All of the ALG rails have a QD sling mount location on either side of the rail backed by the receiver. These slots limit rotation to about 90 degrees of travel, although I've busted the limiting tabs on at least one of them. I used to use these set up with a Magpul QD to paraclip adapter mount, but lately I prefer to have the front of my sling farther forward on the gun. The rails use ALG's proprietary barrel nut, which is a really smart and solid design, and they also come with a pack of shims you can use to get the timing with the barrel nut and the gas tube proper. You need to use one of their proprietary barrel nut wrenches to install them, but the wrench only costs like $5, and since I've used mine to install 5 or 6 ALG rails, I think I got my money's worth. The way the wrench and the barrel nut work also ensures that you get proper torque on the barrel nut even without using a torque wrench, as long as you follow their installation instructions. Of course, this isn't actually very difficult. The proper torque window for AR barrel nuts is enormous. If you can't get it right by feel, you honestly have no business leaving the house without your parent or guardian. The rail is attached to the nut with 6 bolts, and the rails also have anti-rotation tabs for additional stability. I have never had an ALG rail loosen up on me or cause any sort of problem. They're fucking excellent. The V0E is an economy version of the original rail. ALG makes them in a few different lengths, and they are stupid cheap for such a high-quality rail. It uses the same proprietary accessory mount system, but only around the circumference of the very end of the rail, and it still has the Sling QDs. For mounting a front iron sight to the V0 or V1 rails, you need a special 1913 rail section, one version for the M-Lok system and one for the proprietary system. Those are a bit taller than a standard bolt-on rail section, which is what you need to get the front sight to the proper height. The original lineup of rails was replaced with the Gen 2 versions a while back. These are denoted with an X on the end of the model name. Gen 1 rails had a fully octagonal profile with M-Lok slots on all faces. The Gen 2 rails do not have octagonal M-Lok slots, but instead have a kind of strangely offset hexagonal layout. The rails are still octagonal in profile, but have no M-Lok slots on the 3 or 9 o'clock positions. I don't know exactly why they did this. Personally, I found it very comfortable to put M-Lok rail covers on the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions on my V1 rail. It gives good coverage and solid grip. With the V2X and V3 rails I have, they're set up a little differently. The V2X rail on my patrol rifle has 2 runs of rail covers on the 430 and 730 positions. This gives the rail a sort of triangular profile like an old M16 handguard. Wide at the bottom, skinny at the top. It's kind of neat. The V3X rail on my night fighting gun is set up with rail sections on the 2, 6, and 10 o'clock positions, so it has the same general all-around coverage as the 3, 6, 9 setup on the V1X, but it doesn't feel as nice. It's kind of a bummer, honestly. The other thing you might run into with the X rails is difficulty with sling mounting points. On the V1X rail, I have a Magpul M-Lok to paraclip adapter on the 9 o'clock position near the front of the rail, just the way I like it. On the V2X, I have a paraclip adapter on the 10 o'clock position, which is pretty good but not quite perfect. On the V3X, which is a much shorter AR, I'm just using a QD swivel on the built-in QD point. The built-in QDs are lined up with the diagonal slots, not the horizontal slots, so they have the same problem. It's really not a big deal, but all things being equal, I would prefer to be able to have the sling right at the 9 o'clock position. On all 3 of the ARs I have with these rails, I have lights attached at the 10 o'clock position using Arisaka M-Lok N-line scout mounts. The 11.3-inch barreled night fighting AR has an Arisaka 300, the other 2 have Streamlight 1Ls. That's my preferred place and method to attach lights. On the V1 rail, you could use an Arisaka 45-degree offset mount and put it on the 9 o'clock instead, but I think you'd basically end up with the exact same light placement, so that doesn't matter too much. Between the original Rails and the Gen 2 changes, I do prefer the originals, but the X versions are still fantastic. The V1 is a superb rail for a super light gun. The V2 is a good choice for a scoped rifle that you want to be able to run backup irons on. And the V3 is perfect for something like this night fighting gun that has a laser module on top. There's so much rail space I could also push the laser back and still use backup irons, but the only thing that's going to take the aim point out of the fight is the heat death of the universe, so I don't think I need them. I love ALG's rails. Obviously, I wouldn't have bought so fucking many of them if I didn't think they were good. They're also a great value. These things are very affordable given the features and quality. Unfortunately, I can't really recommend them anymore because it seems like ALG doesn't really exist anymore. It's hard to tell, but over the last year, their product availability has fallen off a cliff to almost nothing. I'm not sure if they're still making new product or just selling off the last of their stock before they close down. I've had email alerts on some of their products for almost a year and haven't received anything. ALG is the company of Amy Lynn Geisley, wife of Bill Geisley, and their two companies are joined at the hip. If I had to engage in some bullshit speculation, I would guess that Geisley products are more popular than ALG products, so they're focusing their manufacturing capability on making Geisley products instead. The demand is higher and they sell for a lot more money, so even though they're probably no more expensive to make than the ALG products, it's a no-brainer. I hope I'm wrong. ALG makes great AR triggers and rails, and I hope I can still buy more of them years from now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.